Well, it's my great pleasure to bring in next a gentleman who can offer us insight and thoughts on what's happening with the current legislative session in our democracy, in our republic. We do have this representative process and votes on these representatives who can go out and really advocate for our interests. And good morning, our esteemed senator from Senate District 35, which I think, I don't know if it is already Senate District 6 or will be Senate District 6. So it will be in the future, I think, as part of the redistricting plan. And so currently it still is Senate District 35, but no longer a freshman senator within the legislature. Now he's an experienced veteran who can navigate easily through all of the different pathways and all the different areas of the Capitol, the state, the process. And we're so very, very excited to have joining us this morning, Senator Cleave Simpson, who is also our general manager for the Rio Grande Water Conservation District. From the San Luis Valley, raised on a farm and ranch, Cleave very much knows about the issues that impact the Rio Grande Basin and the San Luis Valley, does serve as the general manager for the Rio Grande Water Conservation District, has been the past chairperson for the Adams State University Board of Trustees, and is currently serving as the senator from Senate District 35. So Cleave, my friend, it's good to see you. Good morning. Welcome.
Thanks, Armando. Appreciate it immensely. What an honor and a privilege again. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule as well to MC this event and facilitate it. I really would be reluctant if I didn't really take advantage as well to thank Rio for really building this symposium to the place it is today, and remembering where we started in Richardson Hall in 2019. And through COVID, we've still managed to put this together. She has, and her staff and folks. So wonderful event again. So informative. I appreciate all the panelists earlier today. They did a wonderful job. Really a special thank you to my staff for really stepping up kind of in the odd times where I'm at the legislature 120 days early in the year. So they've done a wonderful job. And the discussions about water export are particularly valuable and important to me. And again, some recognition of Heather and her devotion and really picking up and representing our community extremely well in these conversations with Douglas County and a number of other folks. So from a legislative perspective, as Armando touched on, I'm in my second session now. So I look backward just a little bit. Last year was an abbreviated session. COVID, we started and stopped and then started again. But from a water perspective, there were a couple of really on the heels of some of the biggest wildfires in Colorado's history with East Troublesome and Cameron Peak and Pine Gulch. There was a pretty good effort and funding and legislation about watershed restoration grant program and forest health management. Was active and participated in drafting some legislation about stand up a soil health program in the Department of Agriculture that has a direct connection to water use and water conservation. State water plan, we injected $15 million to get the state water plan and roundtable some funding as well. So that was the 2021 session. Really the 2022 session is really, as you can imagine, as the state's dependence on water just continues to grow, whether it's municipal interests or ag or recreation or environmental, and couple that with the dwindling supply, it just puts us in, a place where we need to have these really important, engaged, collaborative conversations about a path forward. So several things unfolding this year. I'm fortunate enough to work with Senator Sonnenberg in the northeast part of the state in the Republican River Basin. Last year, he and I started talking about the recognition that there's some federal dollars, a significant amount of federal dollars flowing into the state of Colorado last year, and then even again continuing on this year. And could we potentially tap into some of those federal dollars to help our two communities that are very unique in the state? The Republican River is tasked under a compact agreement with Nebraska and Kansas to reduce the number of irrigated acres in the South Fork of the Republican. So they've been working towards that, and have raised and assessed over $100 million in their community to advance that effort of compact compliance, and really are taking advantage of this kind of one-time funding, and hopefully being in the right place at the right time to utilize some of those to help them meet their compact compliance. And likewise, here in the Rio Grande Basin and our challenges around sustainability, the opportunity to likewise take advantage of some of those federal funds. So we crafted a bill. It's Senate Bill 2228 called the Groundwater Compliance Fund. It just sets up a fund in CWCB. There's no appropriation yet, and an outline of how we would use those dollars through collaboration with the Republican River Water Conservation District and the Rio Grande Water Conservation District, CWCB, and the state engineer on identifying places to spend those dollars if we get them allocated, and help those two communities. So that's really a big deal. It was a bill we crafted for the Interim Water Resources Review Committee last summer. It passed out of committee unanimously. It was introduced in the Senate and went through the Senate Ag Committee with full support, unanimous support. I'm losing track of time. Last week or the week before, it cleared the full Senate, again, with unanimous support. So no votes in opposition to the bill at all yet. And if we get it stood up, there was another process to kind of tap into the federal dollars available to help us. And I've made the request for about $80 million to flow into that fund, and then split between the two districts again to help solve our, at least swing the pendulum much further in the direction of solving our problem. So that's a big deal, and will be hugely important to both these two communities. We're the only two communities in the state that have those groundwater withdrawals that are tied to either a compact compliance component and or statutorily required sustainability, creating and maintaining sustainable aquifers. So, and it kind of sets a template for maybe how the rest of the state can do something similar when you talk about the Colorado River system and some of the challenges there. So this might be again, a template for how you might want to do this. Some of the other big ones, there is a bill introduced. It's Senate Bill 22-29. It's called Investment in Water Speculation. So there's the whole story behind this. I don't want to get into it deeply in the spirit of time, but how right now the Colorado Constitution would preclude you from purchasing water under a speculative position. You have to have a beneficial use for that water when you acquire it. You can't just buy water and hold it and hope to use it someplace else. There's real interest in now people buying water potentially for financial speculation. So that's what this bill is about. It's pretty problematic for me as written, but the bill sponsors know that and really trying to stimulate some conversation about people buying water for speculation. But if you're going to limit that, potentially, you wrap up and catch farmers and ranchers that quite often it's referred to as that's their 401k. And in some instances, it certainly is. So a nuanced and interesting conversation yet to unfold about that water speculation bill. It hasn't been heard in committee yet. So another one that's got a lot of attention is Senate Bill 22-114. This is about fire suppression ponds and a water right for them. This has to do with the state really looking hard at ponds that were constructed in some instances over the last 30 or 40 years that were constructed illegally, that became kind of a necessity in certain parts of the state for fire suppression. You can imagine how much of our community and our state is built in the wildland urban interface, the WUI, and some of the remoteness there and the necessity to have access to fire suppression. So lots of discussion and debate there about prior appropriation system, and you have an illegal pond. Is there a mechanism to set up a standard for an exemption under certain circumstances. So an abundance of these ponds, and good conversation about that will unfold over the coming weeks. It had its first hearing in Senate Ag a couple of weeks ago. So one this week that also drew a lot of attention was a bill really crafted. I can't say this with great confidence, but if you didn't know, a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, the governor of Nebraska made a declaration that Nebraska was going to spend $500 million to build a diversion on the South Platte River in Colorado and divert water through a yet to be constructed canal to be delivered to Nebraska for their beneficial use. And there's some language in the South Platte Compact that recognizes that ability. Again, a lot of nuances and conversations. It's pretty much a political heated battle right now. But Nebraska was making, their claim known that they were going to secure their water right. So there's a bill heard this week about prioritizing water storage in Colorado on the South Platte in particular. So even internally in Colorado, that raises some angst. And where are we going to spend funding? If you prioritize funding on the South Platte, does that come at the expense of other, high priority projects? So lots of discussion about that one. And it's been, I don't want to say watered down, but the language has been adapted to make it really, it's about prioritizing water projects in all the state that have, particularly around compact compliance and the opportunity to take advantage and full advantage of the water that's due to Colorado. The other one that I'm a sponsor on is a turf replacement program. So across the state, there are a number of particularly utilities that offer incentives to have people replace their Kentucky bluegrass with really native vegetative cover or something, certainly less water consumptive. So that was important for me to get involved in and recognize the pressures on rural Colorado and the growing demand in the Front Range. So it seemed like an opportune time to maybe build a collaborative and try to find a sweet spot to reduce some of that demand along Front Range. So that's kind of the number of the bills that are at least ones that have been introduced. There's some discussion everybody should know about an acronym called RIVER. It's a recreational in-channel value reach. Some discussions about leasing water for boating and kayaking outside of Colorado. Also already has something called a recreational in-channel diversion. These are temporary flows to support events in municipalities. There's a lot of discussion about that. And again, it all ends up wrapping around prior appropriation system and protecting senior water rights. Lastly, Becky was on here. It's not legislation, but everybody always should pay attention to what's happening on the Colorado River system. It is impactful here. It's really impactful across the state what happens in the Colorado River system. So something called the 2007 Colorado River Interim Guidelines for lower basin shortages and the coordinated operations of Lake Powell and Lake Mead, and Becky's heavily involved in those conversations as that 2007 interim is about to expire. Again, how the Colorado River system operates, and much like us in the Rio Grande, dwindling supplies and just ever increasing demands make it a pretty challenging conversation. I'll conclude with, I'd like to remind folks, and I give credit where credit is due. The AG, the Attorney General, Phil Weiser, routinely highlights this, and I've adapted it. And inside the Capitol on the first floor rotunda is a poem by Thomas Hornsby Farrell. And there are a number of pictures all on that first floor, and it's all tied to water. But the first line of the poem is, "Here's a land where life is written in water." And it couldn't be so true. Couldn't be more true today than it was when he wrote that in the early 1900s. So it's a pleasure to represent you all at the state capitol, and today Senate District 35, and next year it'll be Senate District 6. But always proud to work for you all at the state capitol. So thank you, Armando. Pleasure being here today.
Yes, thank you, Senator Simpson. Appreciate you bringing a lot of those issues that are happening to the forefront. You know, some of them do get made into law and some don't. And so it all depends on how the process works. And that's our system of government, that people should be able to be represented and should be able to comment on the different aspects that do become laws within our society. I always think it's important to recognize that our rural areas don't have the population centers. We don't always have the same number of representatives and senators that the Front Range has, but we still offer tremendous contributions to our state in terms of food and fiber and fuel and value systems and lots of other contributions. I think it's essentially important that rural representatives and senators such as yourself, such as Representative Valdez from our area, do play that role in really representing and offering those rural perspectives, because it's more than just economics, it's more than just lifestyle, it's more than just geographic area. It's a complement of all those. So thank you very much, because you have an extremely valuable perspective there and an extremely representative role. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Armando. Pleasure.